Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV again. And well, another person we saw was David Griffin, wasn't it?
David Griffin did a talk on the UFO aspect, or the alien aspect, to the Falklands conflict back in the early 1980s, which I've got to admit, I didn't even realise. I thought it was just a case of get off our land now.
Yeah.
You know, and a show of military might from Thatcher, but there was a lot more to the story apparently.
An enormous amount. I mean, I've written about this myself. I've written about the Falklands War on the HPANWO blog. There's no doubt that it was not what it appears to be. It was portrayed as basically the British government cared about the lives of the Falkland people and cared about what they wanted, and so basically sent the boys in to rescue them from these nasty, evil Argentines who had taken over their country for no reason at all. You know, after all, it's only an island, there's nothing there but turnip farms and sheep. So why would the Argentines want it? Good question. Why would they want it? And why would the British want it so badly that they'd spend all this energy to take it back? As it's been rightly said, the people there, yes, they do unanimously want to be British. And and I suppose they have a right to be, you know. But since when has the government cared about people's rights? Since when has the government cared about what people want?
Yeah, and when has the government ever cared about a couple of sheep fields and fences? And a weather base, but yeah, there's a lot more to the story. David introduced the topic with a clip you might all be familiar with from the first X-Files film.
Oh, that's scary,
and,
that one.
Yeah, he introduced the topic with that, and it was all about the black oil story, and it was a very similar ebb to what was going on in the Falklands, apparently.
Yeah.
Argentina had built a base on the... If you have a look at the map, geographically, there's a chain of islands just beneath the Falklands, and the lowest island is called South Thule. Now you might know the word Thule from the Thule Society.
Yeah, there's Ultima Thule
Society from Germany in the Second World War.
There's an island.
And, the Argentinians had built a little base there apparently, but they were in contact allegedly with an alien race called the Blues from a planet called Haven, spelled like as in the word heaven. And apparently I think the Russians found out about it, didn't they? And the Americans and the British found out about it in the 1970s. They were sailing past and were like, what's that on the island, kind of thing. And it must have taken a couple of years for the intelligence to kind of work out where it was, and then we know what happened in the Falklands. All hell broke loose.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that the Falklands War is still a bit of a mystery. I mean, but there's Nick Colostrum, who's a fellow columnist on the Rich Planet Extra magazine, has talked about how the whole thing was tricked. They definitely wanted a war because they were about to find a peaceful settlement, and then the General Belgrano was sunk, and it seemed that this sinking was designed to scupper the peace process. That's what Colostrum was saying, and he provides good evidence for this, and he cites interviews that Margaret Thatcher gave on television. He cites other documentation, things like that. But I mean, I'm still leaning towards the idea that I think the oil fields around the Falklands had something to do with it, because I made a prediction a couple of years ago that Argentina would start threatening the Falklands again, and the prediction was that a new oil field was actually struck there.
Well, I think it's appropriate to say about the black oil that David Griffin was talking about in the first place.
Yeah, David has a different view on that. Yeah,
it was like a nano-engineered oil, and this race of blue aliens who apparently, and I mean this is what makes ufology sound a bit, I mean, you can see where the skeptics come from, but I mean, anything's possible when you open your mind to it. And he said that this alien race of blues looked a bit like the Smurfs. You know, but like I say, anything's possible. There's been numerous reports of really small aliens and that, so who are we to say what isn't out there? But they were here to de-engineer this nano oil that was I don't know if it was just laying dormant, and it was only dormant under pressure and cold. That's why it was under the sea floor near the Antarctic, because it's a lot of pressure, really cold, so it was dormant. They were trying to unengineer it, but the powers that be must have kind of sailed in there, kicked off a war. And I mean, the most revealing of it was there was this little weather station, and it was about no bigger than that wall there. The wall between two gates, it was no bigger than that, And you know, they put up a white flag, the Argentinians, they put up a white flag, and they were like, okay, they shipped the Argentinians off the building, and the Marines were there setting charges, and they obliterated the place.
Well, this is weird, wasn't
Now,
it?
that's a bit strange for a weather station.
Yeah,
don't you think?
apparently this was a weather station with only a handful of people on it. There was a small military encampment and there was a group of scientists. Now, they actually sent something, it was called Operation Keyhole. They sent HMS Endurance, a whole ship, with a whole squad of Marines, of Royal Marines, down to that area, when really that place was so irrelevant to the outcome of the war and strategic goals that it was hardly worth the petrol money going there.
Yeah,
I mean, the moment, obviously the garrison on the island were so outnumbered, they did the sensible thing and surrendered.
Just waved the white flag. Yep.
Yeah, so of course they were shipped off. They were shipped off the island on the Endurance and imprisoned on board the ship. Well, the Royal Marines blew the place to kingdom come.
Yeah, there was nothing left of it. Just a few bent metal girders and all.
But they must have a huge explosion. Which, I mean, you'd think they'd have. You know, I mean, this was a war a long way from home. I mean, there's better ways to use that ordnance. I mean, there's a bit of a waste of explosive, isn't it?
The petrol money thing, you know, for this small icy outcrop of volcanic rock. Now, I'm not sure if the volcano's active there. I know David showed a picture which looked like there was glowing orange bits on like a kind of lava bed.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm not sure whether that's active or not. But I mean, what a strange place to attack.
Yeah. But he talked about this nano oil, this sort of like organism that looks like oil. Now, he also mentioned the berserk thread, which was an incident which happened actually in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico, shortly after the huge explosion on the Deepwater Horizon oil rig, created the worst oil spill in history.
See, this is another thing I had absolutely no idea had actually happened. It was a big international conflict, apparently.
Well, this is it all broke out on Godlike Productions, the forum. Now, I was just saying to David earlier, it's a terrible noise to signal noise ratio in there because it's an appalling forum and terrible, awful, full of trolls. But this was one of the sort of like rare gems in the shit pile. A guy who knew someone in the French diplomatic service was basically channeling information from that person through who that person was decoding top secret military French radio signals, and he was illegally sending them to this person who was putting them on the forum. Now this was backed up actually because people immediately went and checked the shipping movements in the area, and it was true. What basically happened was there was a French submarine was in American territorial waters. It was looking for something. Now it found something. It found some kind of cargo in that area. Now the Americans attacked it. They sent in a ship, and they firstly a helicopter dropped depth charges on it, which damaged its nuclear reactor and forced it to the surface. Then all hell breaks loose. I mean, a German submarine appears as well, and an Israeli submarine,
and a Canadian submarine.
Oh, and
a British submarine.
Apparently, yeah, and then the American special force, a ship approaches and drops American special forces off.
And you can guess the sides, can't you?
Oh.
I mean, it was US, UK, and Israel versus the rest of them.
Yeah, well, the UK, the US special forces tried to board the French sub. The French fired back, and basically the boarding attempt failed. But then a German submarine attacked the American ship. An Israeli submarine shot down an American helicopter. Oh, it all became very. I mean, basically a full-scale sea battle, completely secret, wasn't on the news. And then basically the French submarine got away. It's a bit unclear about what happened, but the French submarine got away with its cargo. It transferred the cargo to a ship, a French warship. That ship then set sail back to France, but they were just a couple of hours into the journey, and the captain of the ship phoned a French naval command in Paris and asked permission to jettison the cargo that they just fought a secret war to get.
Yeah, absolutely. So why the secrecy? Why did we not find out about this conflict when we find out about every little detail that's in Syria, in Palestine, and well, actually, we don't find out about Palestine. That's probably a bit of a misnomer.
Oh, not Palestine.
But
no,
we find out about all these like other conflicts. But yeah, this was a big international incident.
Yeah, why? I mean, what was in the cargo? I mean, they just fought so hard to get this cargo, and then they obviously lost to some men.
You know what instantly sprang to mind when I heard about the cargo was what John Unwin talked about. You know, and
wow.
this clear bit of glass and It's, yeah,
I'm afraid I don't think much of that bloke. I'm sorry, I don't think he's not
I
very
don't know how much
convincing.
truth there is, but I mean, when it came to like conflict and secrecy, and I thought it was an artifact of probably that class of secrecy. It certainly wasn't something that I wanted to see. Otherwise, would have found out about the conflict.
Yeah, but I'm glad. You see, I wondered if David was going to actually mention this berserk thing. He did, and he mentioned. Because it seems as if the cargo that the ship was carrying was this strange kind of oil, and the reason they wanted to jettison it was because it was basically going live, and God knows what that means, but it's basically, it sounds like something like this, it can grow and mutate, and it can infect people, and it's, I don't know, I mean, but...
Well, a lot of computer experts and computer engineers were working on it for a company called Marconi.
Yeah.
And there was about 25 very strange deaths. Very strange,
yes.
like kind of suicides. We've got car crashes, electrocutions, asphyxiations, but they're all completely...
All unrelated, all a coincidence. But I mean, it just seems strange. It's like being a Marconi engineer seems to be one of the most dangerous occupations you can do. It's almost as dangerous as being a biochemist, because that's a very dangerous occupation.
I mean, the branch Marconi is working for was the military arm of what they call General Electric. It was the war arm of them, but it got bought out by British Aerospace.
Yeah.
And that's when, that was in the 80s, and that's when it started all going wrong.
Because I mean, David Icke mentions this in one of his early books that that basically the Marconi scientists were suddenly coming down with illnesses and having accidents and committing suicide. Enormously. Like one guy drove all the way. He left for work in the morning, perfectly normal. He drove all the way to Bristol and jumped off the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Why? He didn't leave a note. He was perfectly all right. He was perfectly healthy, perfectly happy. Why did he do it?
Why does he do it? And
Exactly.
It's like a lot of these 9/11 witnesses. That woman who springs to mind, I forget her name, but she was like, no, I'm definitely not going to hang myself. She's hanged before a court case. These things are incredibly strange. It's almost like kind of fingerprints of the security industry.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting lecture by David. I mean, and he was really. I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing this.
It was a great talk. It blew me away. I was like, wow, I didn't realise there was that kind of conflict. And like I say, that thing about the Deepwater Horizon. Who knew? How many of your viewers knew?
I know. I mean,
to find out.
Well, that's it. I mean, I've think about Antarctic. I mean, you see, the Falklands is kind of like it's in a very important strategic point. It's by Cape Horn and the Straits of Magellan, where ships can get from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And as with Panama Canal, it's owned by America. This is controlled by Britain. It's also it's also kind of choke point, as they call it, to the Antarctic world as well. Now, I know a guy. I was approached in 2006. I was approached by a man, an old elderly man, who said that he'd been a soldier in a war in Antarctica. I've written a whole article about this, about my meeting with him, and it really is quite incredible. And David mentioned the fact there was things like Operation High Jump and there were other military incursions into Antarctica towards the end of the Second World War and just after the Second World War, which just make no sense at all from their cover stories.
I've heard that the Hannibal too.
Yeah,
I've heard that was down there shooting at things, and apparently they drove off the British and the American forces who had to turn around and retreat because
the Nazis were there. I mean,
they were there already.
This man I met was part of a British task force to attack the Nazi stronghold in New Swabia. Now, this was not during the Second World War. This was in the winter or the summer down there. This was in 1947 to 48, and the Nazis were still active in Antarctica then. So this is a whole kettle of fish here. But
David put up a quotation. I forgot exactly what the quotation said, but it said something along the lines that they've got a new home for the Führer in the extreme southern region. Yeah. Which goes along with the Antarctica hypothesis, and one I like, but I don't know if this is propaganda or not. I know is it Joseph Farrell, Dr. Joseph Farrell, he says this is just Nazi propaganda, but the Vril Society, which came from the book about the coming race and the energy, the Vril energy, and Maria Orsic and the Vril Society, they said a lot about this hollow earth in the Antarctic.
Yeah.
I mean, Admiral Byrd's account. I don't know if his was the North Pole or the South Pole.
It's both. It was both. Well, he was the first man to fly over the North Pole, Admiral Byrd, but he went to the South Pole too with Operation High Jump.
And that's when he had his
Yeah, and then
his Hollow Earth experience.
But then he went nuts, and he spent the last part of his life in a psychiatric hospital. What's more, so another commander, Admiral James Forrestal, also spent the end of his life just in a psychiatric institution. He was another of the commanders of the. There were 4 commanders. There was under Chester Nimitz. There was 3. There was Cruzen, Byrd, and Forrestal. Now Forrestal also spent the last days of his life in a psychiatric ward. And what's more, he committed suicide apparently by jumping from a window on the 9th floor of the Bethesda Hospital in the psychiatric department. Now, anyone who knows anything about hospitals, as I do, of course, knows that in psychiatric wards, especially ones high up in buildings, the windows don't open. Forrestal was murdered, there's no doubt about it. But the funny thing is now, since reading Gerard Williams, there's absolutely no evidence that Adolf Hitler died in that bunker in Berlin in 1945. It was staged, it was completely fake.
Stalin said he got away. Why is all rejoice?
It was politically expedient for him to be seen to be.
Why would Stalin say that?
Exactly. Well, because it was politically necessary for people to see that Hitler had been killed, just like they did with Saddam Hussein in 2000, and when he was captured and supposedly hung in 2004.
We'll let people believe what they want to believe.
They hang a guy with very, very different teeth to the one. I mean, the reason he kept his beard was probably because they couldn't get the plastic surgery right on his chin. That's what I reckon. But they killed a man. Saddam Hussein was not the one. He got away. He got away before the war.
The photographs when they captured him, it was meant to be in December, but yet there was dates on the trees which was indicative of August, September kind of time.
As far as Hitler goes, I mean, as I said, the body they found, the dental records don't match. We found that because in 1990, when the Soviet Empire collapsed, Adolf Hitler's dental records were retrieved, and the dental records of the corpse they found, which was photographed and supposedly Hitler, was also found, and they're completely different.
Yeah,
that was not Adolf Hitler.
But it was Eva Braun.
She was there.
It was Eva Braun, the other one wasn't Hitler.
Now, Gerard Williams said that Hitler got away. He said he went to South America. Now, I've got reason to believe, yes, he got away, but I think he went further south.
It actually makes sense about the Argentinian thing, because I know a lot of Nazi scientists flee to Argentina.
A lot of them did. They were in Argentina.
They got out really easily because a day before the war was due to finish, the Argentinians who had an allegiance with Germany, so all of a sudden declared war on Germany, so they were free to fly in and out of Germany wherever they want, pick up whoever they want without questions, because they were at war with Germany. It was a tremendous game of propaganda, because they got a lot of Nazi scientists out. Now this would probably tie in with what David Griffin was saying about the Falklands and the Argentinians. Who probably thought of that? Who got contacted? It was probably the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. Because I believe that Adolf Hitler and probably many of the more senior Nazis, they went further south than Argentina, and they were at New Swabia.
What's he called? Simon Wiesenthal caught a few Nazis all over South America. Really.
Well, they were there, but they were in Argentina. That's right. I mean, Gerard Williams claims to have a photo of Adolf Hitler taken in Argentina, and he publishes it in his book. Now, this could tie. I mean, because remember that the Argentines are just as obsessed with. In fact, they're even more obsessed with the Falkland Islands than Margaret Thatcher was. I mean, if you listen to that Christina Kirchner, that lady who's running Argentina now, she's quite a pretty lady, but she's a bit of a bitch apparently.
She's a politician. She's bound to be.
Yeah, but she rants on and on about all this issue all the time. When you think that the financial state that country's in and has been, I mean, they've had the recession. The economic downturn has been running for about 50 years in that country.
I can't remember who made the quotations, but the wars of today are just the wars of the remains of yesterday.
Yeah.
And we should be dropping this war thing, but there's all these kind of covert operations going on that you find out about, and you're like, well, what is there to hide? War's war, it's people shooting each other and trying to conquer the land, but there's all these these subversive operations that we never find out about. They're locked up in black secrecy, and what's so secret about killing people? You know, it's horrible.
Well,
it's wrong. It's immoral.
it is. But then,
in any shape, form, or fashion.
course.
But then you've got all these side operations. What are they up to? They're up to something. They're hiding something. That's for sure.
Well, the problem is whenever war breaks out, and we've seen this in today's world, very often. I mean, it seems to galvanise and polarise the entire population, and it seems to remove any thought, any attempt at critical thought and rational thought. I mean, no one's, you know, the moment everyone gets caught up with the emotion, when the bodies and the injured soldiers start coming back, everyone gets caught up in the emotion of it. No one stops to ask.
It's like a wave of indignation,
Yeah.
isn't it? So get them!
Then suddenly we get so focused on that, people get so focused on these tragedies and these horrors that you forget to think about why it's happening. Why? I mean, this is what David Griffin has helped us to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. I didn't quite get everything he said. I mean, I was a bit drowsy actually. I was just going like that during the beginning of his speech. Not because he was boring, David. You were very interesting indeed. But it's just I got struck by a wave of drowsiness, as I sometimes do in places like this. But
I think it's a lot to do with the light in there. You know,
Yeah.
because a lot of people have been saying the same thing. You know, and it's the lighting levels. You're looking at a very bright screen, and all around is pretty dark. It's like watching your telly in your bedroom at night.
Yeah, but what's definitely true is, I mean, all this attention focused on these islands. There's a lot of attention, and they're very, very, very hot politically, both in Argentina and in Britain, and neither side is telling the truth about why.
Yeah, because let's face it, it's sheep fields and bits of volcanic rock sticking out the Atlantic Ocean on the edge of South America.
Yeah, Falklands Wool, turnip farms, they're very good too. Don't believe the hype, ladies and gentlemen, for HPANWO TV. We're going to go back. I think we've got Alan Foster. Yeah, let's go and I think we missed the first part of his speech.
Oh,
See you later. See you. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.